gonna do again? Hi, I'm Alex Wenzel from Lion's Tail Brewing Company in Neenah, Wisconsin. And I invited Lee in today to try out our new Canadian style lager, Boundary Waters.
Well, that's a pretty beer.
Cheers.
Prost. So, you're calling this a Canadian style lager.
Yeah.
And this is an interesting beer for a number of reasons. Well, it interests me. But before we get into that, let's talk about like what inspired you to brew this. What was your idea behind this?
Okay. Well, my dad always loved drinking the Canadian lagers, Moosehead, Molson. That's kind of what filled our refrigerator as a kid. That's all I remembered. And I lost my dad last summer and wanted to do a tribute beer. So I thought, let's do a Canadian lager.
Cool.
And so that's how it started.
And your dad was no slouch when it came to beer.
Yeah, he worked in the brewing industry. He was in packaging for beer and worked for Schlitz for some time in Milwaukee, and that's where I grew up, and Stroh for a little while. So he was always working with beer, and I'd like to say that's where I got the bug from, but it didn't happen until quite a bit later.
So he favored these Canadian style lagers.
Yeah.
And tell you the truth, I drank plenty of Moosehead and Labatt Blue and Molson Canadian, but I didn't really realize that there was something different about these beers. And when you told me about this a couple months ago, that you were going to do this, you enlightened me on this. Can you talk about what makes these a Canadian style lager different than an American style lager?
Yeah, sure. So the American style lagers are lighter because they're not all malt. They replace a certain portion of the malt with corn usually, or rice. Budweiser uses rice. Miller Lite and Coors Light, I think Coors Light uses corn. And so that just kind of gives you the alcohol without the malt taste and thins it out and makes it more drinkable. But what the Canadian lagers use is basically it's brewer's crystals, but it's maltose. It's the same sugars that are in malt without getting the malt flavor. And so that's what I used in Boundary Waters, and it's not crazy malty. It's a little bit lighter and refreshing, but it still has that full palate feeling, and it's got an interesting flavor, and it doesn't have that corny American lager.
It has none of that sort of corn aroma that you sometimes
right.
get. But what I think really jumps out to me, like right away, the first sip of this, is like the body. It's like I wouldn't say it's a heavy beer, but it's full bodied for sure. You don't get that kind of lightness, that dryness that you get from corn or rice. Right.
And I mean, I set out to make a light beer because we need one. I mean, our beers are. You know how brewers get. You want to make big, and the next one's bigger than the last. And I mean, we just did the collaboration with Bare Bones, and that was 9.5%. And I'm looking at our lineup and thinking, geez, we really need something light in there, at least like an in-between beer, And
but
so
it's not light on flavor though. Yeah, it's a 5%, and you said like 11 IBUs on this.
Yep.
And there's a little bit of that, hop flavor. I wouldn't say hop flavor, but enough bitterness there to balance out that maltiness.
Yeah.
But it's not like it's a lighter beer, but it's not a light beer. I don't think.
Right.
I mean, it's a flavorful beer.
Yeah. Hopefully, there's some interest and some flavor there.
Yeah.
And I set out to come up with a beer with a lot of flavor with balance. That's kind of my goal as a brewer all the time. And with a lighter lager, that's sometimes difficult to do. And but I think it's pretty well balanced.
Oh yeah.
So we did some special glassware for Boundary Waters, and it's a pint glass, kind of made to look like a can. But these will be available in the tap room. I will serve it in them, and if you wanna buy a couple for your home beer enjoyment, we'll have them available as well. But yeah, it's just kind of a fun glass and I thought pretty fitting for the style.
I mean, this is kind of interesting. You've been like 15 months now. You've been open, and you've done about 25 beers in that time, and 5 of those beers have been lagers, at least according to my count.
Yeah,
that's about right on that.
Yep.
So, lagers present a challenge for small breweries like yours. Can you talk about what makes it more difficult to do a lager than a standard, like an IPA, let's say?
Sure. Well, a lager ties up your process for usually 4 to 8 weeks. An ale takes 10 to 14 days. So it just takes up your equipment longer so you can produce less beer. For some breweries where they're maxed out, and I'm not there yet, they don't have the luxury of being able to make a lager because they can't tie up a tank for 4 to 8 weeks. And so I'm well under my capacity at this point, and I've got some freedom to do those and have this beer in a tank for 4 to 8 weeks. So I really like lagers. I think a lot of people do, and so it's fun to play around with that. Now, in another year, maybe we're doing 1,000 barrels, and I'll have to kind of pick and choose, or else buy a new tank and stuff it in somewhere. But for now, I'm having some fun.
Well, the challenge of it is a little bit more. So for you as a brewer, it's got to be kind of exciting to have one come through like this. I mean, it really turned out well. I mean, look at that thing.
Yeah, thanks. And
great.
we don't filter our beer, so it takes a little bit of time to settle some of those solids out, and to get a beer bright like that without using a DME filter or a pad filter.
So how are IPAs are ubiquitous? It seems to be what people come rolling in for. How are people here responding to these lagers you've been doing?
Well, our Dunkel has been pretty popular.
Mile Munich.
Yep, Mile Munich, dark German style lager.
Yeah.
But I think people like them. Still, the big demand, and when you look at our sales, IPA and stout are always very big, and people are demanding them. But I always want to have a pretty good variety and keep mixing it up. So we'll always have an IPA or two, and right now we've got 3 stouts on, so through the winter. But I like having some variety, for somebody to come in to have different options.
Well, and I like that I can come in and get a 5% beer.
Yeah.
I like big beers, but I mean, the fact is, you have to drive back to OSHKOSH at some point, so you got to kind of pace yourself. But you want to have a couple beers,
Right.
This makes it a little easier. But it's a flavorful, good beer, and it's you don't feel like you're downgrading by going to something like this. It's excellent beer.
Well, and I've had friends come in that aren't craft beer drinkers and don't, they're not used to an 8% beer, and so when they're drinking our bourbon stout, for example, it's 8.2%, and they're drinking it like it's a Coors Light. That gets me some angry text messages the next day. What do you put in that stuff? Alcohol.
Right. Yeah, I mean that's the thing. If people are just coming into this for the first time or something, they don't realize that these aren't beers that you can just drink like you could drink a Miller or a Pabst or something like that.
And so that's why this one's nice. It's 5%, and over the spring and summer, we'll have a couple other sessionable beers. So, someone who wants to come in and have something lighter will have some options.
So I want to get back to your father just a minute. So this is when you were, getting this going. Did you ever give him your IPA or your pale ale, and what did he think of it?
Yeah, he would always try them, and I think he was kind of on the verge of appreciating some different flavors, but. Like a lot of people, he'd never really, ventured off and tried some of the beers. So he was trying them and starting to kind of get into it, but still the fridge was always full of the Mooseheads. So.
Yeah. Well, an IPA is a shock to the system when you've been drinking that stuff your whole life, and. Around here, there's still some things that he contributed to the brewery.
Yeah, he was a big part of this place, and he was a wood turner. He made all my tap handles, and actually the one I chose for this was kind of a tap handle that was in the middle of the process, you know, being turned on the lathe, and I thought that'd be kind of neat.
Nice.
But yeah, it was a big part of starting up this place, and so this was a neat project to, you know, pay a tribute to my dad.
Well, it turned out really well, really well, and I think he'd appreciate it.
Yeah.
And it turned out to be a great beer, man.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
All right, and so it's on tap now.
It's on tap starting today. We'll be serving it this Saturday at the Open Road Harley Davidson in Fond du Lac as their 10th anniversary. So that's a big bash.
Nice.
We'll be down there serving it, and yeah, in the tap room in downtown Neenah.
So are you gonna distribute this beer at all? Is it gonna go around?
Yeah, we will. The only problem is I'll be brewing it again tomorrow, and it's a 2-month beer, so. I have to not run out of, I made 10 barrels of it, so I have to kind of space that out so I can not run out by the time the next batch is ready. So.
Well, it turned out great.
Yeah, thank you. Cheers.
Thanks.